Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle. Today, I come to read some material from the Law of One, both from the raw material and from the quo material. This is going to be on the topics of mind, surface mind, deeper mind, and sort of the balance between what you would consider mind and spirit, or possibly mind and intuition. And, things like anxiety and ruminating and worrying too much, and how that's sort of affecting you. So, without further ado, first of all, I'll mention my website where you can find all this material, theoneinfinitecreator.com. You can support me there, or you can find links to all of this material for free, and I encourage you to do so. Okay, so we're going to read first a quote from Quo, Q-U-O, and this will be from 1995, September 10th. Quote begins, "What is there to choose to do instead of worrying? And we suggest to you that worry is disorganized and random prayer. The deepest inner dialogue is with the great self that overarches and undergirds all that is. Worries and fears not only stew and seethe within the mind, they also register within the infinite one as cries of distress. However, the energy used in worrying is tangled and mazed, and the Creator, although reaching within always to comfort, simply cannot move through that tangle that has stopped the inner hearing, the inner vision, the inner sensing of that peaceful, creative, and wise self. Thusly, when the seeker sees itself in a muddle, worrying and fretting, we suggest that one resource that may aid is the memory, the remembrance of the fact that one who worries may also be one who prays and enters into conversation with the infinite Creator, that greater self of which each is an ineffable and unique portion." And then they continue on in a little bit down. "How to lay hold upon that natural function, how to encourage it. We have often said that faith, when first chosen as a way of living, is nothing more than a leap into space. Faith creates itself in the midair, when the will of the seeker has been surrendered. That first so-called leap of faith is a beginning. It could be nothing more than the conscious decision, the promise to the self, I will live by faith. This is a good beginning. The will is invoked by such an affirmation. Each time the seeker subsequently finds itself mired in useless and cyclical worry, the affirmation may be repeated, I will live by faith. Sooner or later, there comes a moment when the repetition has bred a new and positive habit of mind, and in that moment, the seeker finds that she has skipped the usual habit of worry and been inspired spontaneously to affirm, I will live by faith. That moment of peace is as precious as your rare metals and should be stored carefully in a special part of the memory, that memory that lies just beyond the surface of things." Quo, The Law of One, dated 1995, September 10th. End of quote. Okay, so I suppose to make it more simple, this is more about your inner dialogue. I was speaking with a friend yesterday about your inner dialogue, because I sort of am watching them and looking at them, and they seem to be, anxious person, a lot of thoughts that come from the mind. And then I just want to make out, while I'm speaking about the mind in this, I want to note that if I just use the word mind in general, I'm sort of speaking in terms of the surface mind. There's deeper parts of the mind. There's the surface mind, and you can go lower to the roots and further below. And I'm going to differentiate between those. I'm going to read you a raw quote in a moment. But what I generally want to get across is that there are layers to the mind. So the mind itself first starts with body consciousness, so it's essentially your body complex speaking, and then it's also the funneling of the spirit. So you have this body and spirit, and they're sort of coming together within your mind, and you need to find a balance of that. So what happens, I find, in our third density sort of human minds is that we tend to be more leaning towards mind bias, surface mind bias. We tend to not look at the faith and the spirit and the intuition side of things. because, well, the physical world doesn't appreciate those things as much as they could, because when most people in this world only trust the things that they see with their eyes, then you can understand how that sort of thing might work. So let me read a little bit from Ross. This should help sort of put together what I'm speaking about in terms of the mind and the different layers of it, and how you have, you can have a balance of mind and intuition. So I would say that another way would be a balance between surface mind and deep mind, which is going to be the balance between body and spirit, the balance between mind and intuition. Okay, so let's begin with this Ra quote. Ra, session 30.2, beginning of quote. The mind is a complex which reflects the inpourings of the spirit and the uppourings of the body complex. It contains what you know as feelings, emotions, and intellectual thoughts in its more conscious complexities. Moving further down the tree of mind, we see the intuition, which is of the nature of the mind, more in contact or in tune with the total beingness complex. Your total beingness complex is kind of like your higher self. That's just me adding in. Okay, quote continues. Moving down to the roots of the mind, we find the progression of consciousness, which gradually turns from the personal to the racial memory, to the cosmic influxes, and thus becomes a direct contactor of that shuttle which we call the spirit complex. This spirit complex is the channel whereby the inpourings from all the various universal, planetary, and personal inpourings may be funneled into the roots of consciousness, and whereby consciousness may be funneled to the gateway of intelligent infinity through the balanced, intelligent energy of body and mind. You will see by this series of definitive statements that mind, body, and spirit are inextricably intertwined and cannot continue one without the other. Thus, we refer to the mind-body-spirit complex rather than attempting to deal with them separately, for the work, shall we say, that you do during your experiences is done through the interaction of these three components, not through any one. End of quote. So you may see there what I'm trying to get across, which is that you are always having this balance between mind, body, and spirit. The body is sort of the contactor, I suppose the mind is almost the contactor between the body and the spirit. They state here at the beginning of this Ra quote, the mind is a complex which reflects the inpourings of the spirit and the uppourings of the body complex. In my mind, I visualize this quite simply as you see the 7 chakras. My understanding is we have energy that comes up through our feet. That would be is what they're describing here as the uppourings of the body complex. That seems to be our default state, where that's a natural thing for the uppourings of the body complex to come through to us. And this is what I'm describing of as surface mind. And then they go and they say the mind is a complex which reflects the inpourings of the spirit. So I picture that as the downward pouring portion, like it's like you have 2 vortexes that come into your body. So the inpourings of spirit come in from the top of your being. So they come in through the violet and indigo chakras and pour down into you. And I believe that generally the idea is that when you open up your heart in the middle, what you've done is you've come to a sort of balance between body and mind, between the mind and spirit, or surface mind and spirit, and the heart is sort of the meeting ground where those two things can coalesce and balance each other out. So where you're using your surface mind and respecting the fact that you do have intellect and a mind that sees things through separation, and it's useful, and it does things for you, like math and all that good stuff, but it can only see half of the picture. The other half of the picture is spirit, is infinity, it's the creator, it's unity, and all of those sorts of things can be better described as silence. So if you're finding that you're anxious and you're talking a lot in your head, as they say, ruminating, which would be like you're just thinking a thought over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't seem to be helping, it's just sitting there repeating. Well, this is your mind, in my opinion, going a little bit astray. It's not that what your mind has to say is wrong. It very well may be true. But you obsessing over it constantly is not going to necessarily help the situation. It's not going to help you integrate it and move on. So what would be a suggestion is to use your intuition, right? Have a daily meditation where you're setting aside even 5-10 minutes of the day where you recognize that, hey, I'm going to live by faith. I accept that I know that I do not know. The will of the Creator, is somewhat mysterious. And in that, a lot of seeming suffering can happen along our paths. But if we have faith to know that all will be well, the Creator is perfection, there's a plan, and that plan is in motion. And through a series of free will actions, all paths will lead to the Creator. So through that faith, we can calm down the mind. You have that daily meditation, so you set aside that focus. It's sort of a recognition of the power and importance of intuition and infinity and the Creator, and respecting that in every moment. And when you take that from meditation and bring it into your daily life, then when the mind starts ruminating and thinking things, it's fine, but you may be able to balance it with the silence and the faith and the will to know that all is well, and that as long as you have good intentions to move forward and do good things, then that path will lay itself out for you. You may call that stupid, and if you're a very intellectual person, well, you probably would think that sort of thing is stupid, but I myself am naturally a sort of intellectual being, and so I have a default surface mind attitude sometimes, which is why it's very important for me to do things of a spiritual nature daily. I do things like this podcast, I make daily Instagram posts, but that by essence has me reading parts of this spiritual material and contemplating on it and reflecting and delivering that out to everybody else. So this is a sort of recognition of the importance of infinity and silence and the Creator and spiritual things. And through that, I then bring that down into the mind and my human aspect, and I'm able to, put it out on social media or whatever, right? So, and even then in my mind too, like, I was explaining to my friend the other day, you think you're the only anxious one and you don't think it's hard here and stuff like that. I mean, I may come across as everything is going well, but in truth, in my mind, I'm very well aware of the suffering. I'm well aware of the seeming hopelessness of certain things. And it's not that I ignore those things and think that, just see things with rose-colored glasses and think that that's not possible. It's that I recognize that is a part of life. That's my surface mind. I respect my surface mind thoughts, but I would like to bring those to a deeper part within me that recognizes the perfection of the Creator and infinity in the moment, in which I can just breathe and just sit here in silence and know that all the bad things that have happened to me before in life have led to this place where I'm at now, and this place where I'm at now isn't so bad. So everything that was terrible at one time before in life must have been for some reason. That gives me faith to keep going on, and even though the mind and the intellectual and the 3D world can seem very overwhelming. And it very much is, especially these days, government encroaching on you everywhere and sort of stomping on your free will to a certain degree. The pressures of the pandemic and lockdowns and just all these constant thoughts that we have. I think it's more important now than ever to have that focus of spirit, of oneness, of the Creator, of the deeper mind. Because I think it's easy to say that you appreciate those things, but can you really appreciate and act that way even when all seems to be falling apart around you? And there you have it. So let me just check my notes. I want to see if I have anything else on this topic that I would like to go over. Yeah, so I'll just mention, I kind of did earlier, but this is about balance. It's not about not honoring your mind and thoughts that it gives you. But I've heard a different person say before, they're sort of doing this, exaggerating a bit, but they're saying, ignore your thoughts. Do not listen to your thoughts. Your thoughts are of Satan. The intuition, God, the creator, your higher self, speaks to you, and it doesn't necessarily speak to you in words. Intuition is a feeling. It's an inkling, a sort of bias towards something. So, you can do best by respecting the mind and the thoughts, but knowing that they're only part of the equation and they need to be balanced. It's sort of like your mind is your ego and your intuition is your higher self, and you need to, come to a balance between those two things, because if you're just one or the other, if you're two mind and you're just all intellectual measurement of everything, and then if you're intuition, you're no mind, and you're gonna be flighty and just very sort of crazy sounding to most people. You won't be able to ground yourself and relate. So there's both very important things. But the main part is from my understanding, is you just don't let the mind lead. The mind definitely has this want to be in control. And I believe Carla from LL Research, who channels all this law of one material, she used to say, don't put the cart before the horse, which would mean don't put, let the heart lead the mind. Don't let the mind lead the heart, because the mind has a want to really just take control, and then you'll find yourself, stuck in an anxious world where everything is very, very overwhelming, I would suggest. So to listen to only the surface mind is a bit folly. You do your daily meditation, which shows your honor and respect for the silence, and when I'm talking about meditation, you definitely want to try to eventually get into some sort of silent meditation. Through silence is where we meet the creator, is my understanding. Silence is golden. And lastly, although I've said this in a bunch of metaphorical ways, be kind to yourself. The easiest way that I could make this advice stick in your mind, I suppose, would be to say, clean up your inner dialogue. Whenever you see the mind giving you something that seems negative, there I go being mad again, oh, well, I'm so stupid, right? Those are all terrible things to you to say. It's okay. You can recognize that you've said it once. You don't repeat it to yourself over and over again. And better yet, you eventually want to clean up the inner dialogue. So talk to yourself like you're a child. Oh, there's my personality again acting up. I need a hug. Give yourself a hug. If you have this attitude of cleaning up your inner dialogue, naturally you'll find that you're also going to be interacting with other people a lot better too. It's just that we think that other people, are our problems, but often we are our problems and we project onto others. So if you clean up your inner dialogue, you're kinder to yourself. You'll automatically find it's so much easier to be kinder to others. The more grace you give yourself, the more grace you can extend to others, etc., etc. So, to serve one is to serve all. You are one of those people, so you need to set the example of how you think others should be treated by treating yourself that same way too. I suppose would be a simpler way of putting it. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I think this is good for today. The1infinitecreator.com. You can head there and check out links to all this information. Thank you so much for listening. I will be back again on Friday for another podcast. We're doing these Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I would appreciate if you liked, shared, and subscribed any of this. Let me know your thoughts on the material. Is it helpful? Is it not? Thank you so much. Love you guys. Bye.